I was laying on the couch. I literally heard a person behind me walk around me and go upstairs and stop in the medium. I was like, do I need to call the police? I like went under the blanket. I thought somebody was in the house.
I have had my own homes and then not wanted to be there anymore because it has memories, persons, places, things. Maybe you lose a parent or something like that and you no longer want to be there. It's too much. Right. But you don't appropriately cleanse and bless the home when you leave. You leave that residual energy there, and whoever moves in has to deal with it.
Hey guys, Suzy and Tiffany here talking on our podcast on real things going on in the real estate world and everything else around us. So we have an exciting guest today.
Our very first guest.
Hi. Yes. And we're going to talk about how we came about choosing this guest and why she's important in part of the community and real estate world. So let me first let her introduce herself. So Miss Ellie, would you like to please introduce yourself and your business and talk a little bit about yourself?
First of all, thank you for having me. If you don't know Suzy, you should. And I just met this lovely lady right here. She's awesome too. So my name's Ellie Lieberman, and I have been a professional psychic medium for 15 years full time. I am originally from Los Angeles, and I moved to Charleston about 3 years ago, but I lived in Maryland for 5 years right before COVID hit. I think I got protected from the craziness in LA, and I moved here, and I have been doing more house clearings than I ever have in my entire career. But really, I'm just a spiritual guide more than anything. I help people find themselves. I have a few licensed therapists that refer me for grief counseling and things like that. But if you have a hard time making decisions or have experienced something that has really jarred you as a person, I usually, don't quote me, 95% of the time confirm that you're not crazy, that it's okay. And then a lot of people have experiences that they don't necessarily want to talk about to their friends and family because they think they're going to look crazy. I would say almost every time that has to do with visitation or spirit or a loved one coming through.
I can see that.
Yeah, people are like, I don't know, should I say something? Right. Are they going to commit me, you know? And then the way I met you, Suzy, was pretty wild.
Part of the purpose of this is Charleston is a very historical place.
Yes.
We have a lot of history here. A lot has happened. We have a lot of old homes as well.
Yes.
Well, it's like, I think one of the most historic towns in the entire country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's spooky. I don't know anybody who you mention Charleston to and they're like, oh, it's a little spooky. It's so old. Like, that's the initial conversation. Mm-hmm. One, it's beautiful, but then also, have you heard the history before? Have you ever had a thing? Like, people ask me that since I've moved here, and I'm like, let me tell you, just go downtown. Like, you can turn one corner and you can feel it. If you're a regular person, even if you don't believe in that stuff, it's electric.
Yeah.
You can feel the static down certain roads and streets and things.
Mm-hmm.
So
we thought, being part of a real estate agent, real estate photography, we have had experiences ourselves on top of just kind of addressing, what do you do if you buy a historical home and you're having issues or things of that nature. So a little background as to how we met. And she has a wonderful business, and I truly, wholeheartedly believe in it because I've experienced it 100%. But I was one of those people that felt a little odd and reluctant to speak on we were experiencing a person in the house, footsteps, and situations, let's just say. And we didn't quite understand how or why. Now, we're not in a historic home.
No.
Our house is 20 years old. We live in a golf course community in Somerville. Never had an issue the first few years of living there. Nothing ever happened. So it was completely foreign to me and thinking, well, how could there be a ghost or something in this house that nobody died in, or it's not historic, or... Yes. And here it ended up being an item that a family member brought into the house.
Yes.
Because apparently that can happen, which I'm learning.
Yes.
My husband and children really like to collect and dabble into antiques and estate sales and, old military stuff. As you know, we've rebuilt the old World War II Jeep and truck, and so and we have a lot of respect for for those things and the military and the history behind it. But did not realize that there are moments.
So you've been living in this house, everything's good,
everything's
story, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden there were little just inconsistencies, noises.
Yes. Yeah. And we have a very big open floor plan. When you're sitting in the living room, you can literally see everything up above and around you.
You can hear, like, when you can hear it, and like there's echoes and stuff. Like, the first thing I want to acknowledge is like your courage to say something. Because what happens is, and you can confirm for me, is both parties are having experiences, your partner and you, but you don't tell each other. So you're having these like moments, and then both of you either have to have them at the same time.
It was the dog,
yeah,
the cat,
and you don't want your partner to think something's wrong with you. So you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But then something happens where you're both mentioning something at the same time, and then it starts to click. Is that what happened?
Right. Yes. So, well, it was two situations that really hit home to make me finally put a post out there, which is how we got connected, which I'll explain. One was at night when I couldn't sleep. I went out into the couch. I was laying on the couch. I literally heard a person come behind me, walk around me, and go up the stairs and stop in the medium.
Yep.
And I was like, do I need to call the police? I like went under the blanket, called.
You got scared.
Called Bo.
She was
I
scared.
thought somebody was in the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
He came out.
That would be terrifying.
Went through.
I would be scared.
Yeah. No, it was super scary, and I've heard it before, but it literally felt like and heard a person like walk right around and up.
Yeah.
And so. And Bo got up and he came out and checked everything, and
there's nobody in the house.
Good job, Bo.
10 points, buddy.
Yes. So, and then it wasn't but a couple days later, he was off work. I was home working from home, but I was outside. I was working on the flower beds and like weeding and this and that. He was in the house. I had not been in the house for a good 2 hours. And he's like, he came outside. He goes, did you just come out here? What were you doing upstairs? I'm like, I have not
upstairs.
been in the house. He goes, no. It was so loud and you're stomping around up there.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's you have these disconnected experiences, but they're the same experience.
Yes.
And then you have that's the conversation that happens.
And it was just and then when we bring it up with like my son, he was like, well, actually, yes, I've heard breathing, I've heard walking, I've heard, and it was like, okay, at this point, and
something's going on.
Yes, and his behavior seemed a little off too, and so I was like, well, for the sake of my family and everything else, I'm just gonna, go on Facebook today and say, hey, this sounds crazy, but has anyone had these experiences? Mm-hmm. And it was a client of mine that tagged Ellie here that has had experiences and has worked with her on things.
I remember that Facebook post, and you actually got a lot of comments and feedback of people that you would never imagine.
Right. No.
That,
that's
have had
the thing.
Similar experiences. But you bringing it out, I think, open
I'm just
kind
really
of
glad
gave
you
everyone permission to sort of
And it did. There was a lot of people that you then helped afterwards. That post because maybe they didn't reach out to me directly, but they reached out to her after the post.
I had Diane and Nikki. Their house was also had things going on.
Which was a newer house in a new neighborhood that you would never guess.
It's the items. And she has antiques and stuff there too as well. Here's the thing. You can tell when a person is genuinely having something going on. The amount of detail that you included in your post, there was a lot of indicators there. I was like, something is actually going on. You also have a reputation that precedes you. So I knew this wasn't a person who's just a little wacky, a little out there looking for attention.
Right.
Because there is that. And let's just be honest, there's also a lot of people who will swindle you. They'll take advantage of people. So there's two issues here, right? I don't want to look crazy, and I also don't want to, be judged in my community, right? So there's that. And then also, like, who do I actually go to that's not going to take me for granted? It's actually legit, and it's going to actually help me. If a person does their job, you should not need them again for a very long time, unless you're bringing other things in, which we had that conversation.
Right.
So our mutual friend and client goes, Ellie, you're on. And I'm like, let me take a look. I knew right away. And I was there like within 24 hours. You like booked an emergency service. She was really scared. You were really scared. And I remember being like, well, do you know what item it is? And you're like, you don't understand.
You don't understand how much history things are in our house.
In my mind, I'm thinking it's just like 3 or 4 items. Maybe it's something they inherited.
It's like a museum.
You have you could run a museum. Yes. You could, like a historical museum of so many things. Like, this is a passion within their family. And I pull up, I'm like, oh, this isn't even an old house. Like, in my mind, I have no idea what I'm walking into. Right. And I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. And I have like all my things like Mary Poppins, like.
Yes, she does.
And I'm like, let me pull out all the things that are staring at me. They're like, what do you need? Like, what do I do? I'm like, it's fine. Everything is fine. Take a deep breath. And it really was more about education. Like, you kind of walked me through the basics. And I was like, well, don't tell me too much, but let me explain to you what this actually is. Everything is energy. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. It just becomes something else. And then I could see the light bulbs starting to click for you guys, where you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Because I think that we don't know how. It's the how. How is this even happening? That's very confusing. Yes. And then there's unknown, right? So you're like, how is this even happening? That's really where you were at.
I have a newer house. I never experienced anything.
I didn't buy a historic home.
Right.
This isn't. There isn't an Indian graveyard in my neighborhood. Right. Like, how did this happen? And then weird things.
Yes.
Weird. So I'm glad it happened this way, because we had presence actually come physically, like, with the 3 of us together. I did not believe in this. She was like, yeah, right.
Is that kind of typical?
No.
If you go into a home that they sort of the energy presents itself to you?
I mean, not where other people can notice it, where I'm hypersensitive.
Just your own intuition, but not like, here I am. Right, okay.
It's probably my top 5, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, where we all were witnessing the same thing.
Yeah.
Usually there's one person that was like, what?
Right.
What just happened? I didn't feel anything. I didn't see anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we all had a collective experience. That's when I know we've really got something going on. I'm also with Magnet. So I was like, I welcomed it. I said, show yourself. That was part of my process, and I'm like, show yourself. And then you're like throwing energy. Imagine your whatever was in the house. Mm-hmm. How did it present? I mean, what was weird was when the lights
went down. Like, it was the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Even the sun, like,
everything
darkened.
dimmed.
It was so.
Wow. I started to do my thing, and when I channel, I'm drawing. I have art
and it's
background.
It's friendly. It's not.
I'm not like, bring the spirits. There's no hokiness.
No.
I'm the least.
We don't have a Ouija board out.
No, I literally was like, this is what blessing oil is. This is what sage is. This is what Palo Santo is. Do you smell the difference? It's all education. Let me explain to you what energy is. Let's see if we can debunk this first. Let me give you some peace of mind, because that's my goal, is for you to feel better and to find out what is really going on here. And all of a sudden, it was like the clouds covered the sun and all the lights went down. I wish it was recorded.
I know,
really do.
I do too.
And literally, I felt it. Like the banister, that middle, you had your
That's where it would always
stairs.
walk.
That banister was there, and you could feel it. It came down, and it was
did.
this cold,
And it,
ooh, I'm
like,
getting
I
chills.
swear, it like hit through my shoulder.
It touched Suzy. So it came in between and then wrapped around your husband. And you were scared. That's when you got scared. You're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, it's fine. And I literally stood up and did jumping jacks in the space. And I was like, nothing is going to hurt you. I'm here. And it was like, that's when things started to lighten. And I just started to channel. I started to draw. And that's when the letter thing happened. And a bunch of other psychic stuff started to happen. We started to pick up on what this could be. And then you were like, do you want to go
walk
into
the
house,
into all the things?
And I just, I lit some candles and I burned some Palo Santo, which I prefer over sage. Palo Santo is a wood that has a really nice, like, sweet, almost like sandalwood scent. And I think it's more light than sage. And so I lit some of that and I walked up the stairs and I go immediately into the room with all of the things in it.
She did not believe me.
I was like, oh, I mean, there's hundreds of items. This is not.
I would
feel
probably
the
say
energy
thousands.
change when you walked into this room? Was there
Oh,
more
yes.
going on there than just
Yes.
this one item?
Yes. And I went straight into the closet. That was what was cool, is like, I think that it's hard to discern whether or not it's from the house, it's from the history of the land, is it from an item, or is a person bringing this on?
Right.
Is it attached to the person? Is it attached to the item? I think you had multiple things going on at once, and that's why it was scary. You had something realizing that your son is young and can, easily be, misguided because he's into this kind of stuff, right? You've got a ton of war memorabilia going on all throughout the house, including in the garage, right? And then you've got multiple eras going on.
Right.
And
we
then
got World War I, World War II,
everything.
Vietnam, like everything.
It wasn't just, and so there was like this mishmash of different eras, and I think that had a lot to do with it. It was like World War II and World War I should not be mixed together. I think it wasn't a haunting. You didn't have a haunting. You had a spirit that was like, something isn't right here. I don't want to be next to the stuff that's from Vietnam. I come from this era and this place and this thing. And as soon as we started to figure that out, I think I actually pulled out his your son's ROTC, right? Was it his?
Yeah.
Was it his, like?
It was his cadet.
His cadet stuff, and I was like, oh, this has to do with him. He's the one who was bringing this stuff in, and nothing was organized. And I was like, well, the first rule of business is we're going to make this organized. This cannot be a teenager's house and a teenager's room. We're going to respect each thing. And you started to just feel it lighten, just more and more. True?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
No, absolutely. And
it was amazing.
Everything that we did and the cleansing procedure that you provided, I mean, because you did stuff, and then of course you gave us stuff to do afterwards,
Yes.
like around the property and things, and all natural things that we're doing, and
Claimed your space. You took your space back. I think you lose your
So
power.
has anything happened since then?
Great question. Has it?
No, aside from a window randomly closing in the middle of the night when we had
So-
nothing has happened. It like after that.
was amazing.
We are hyper aware, I think,
Yes.
now, because we had gone through it, and now if we do hear something, we're like, what was that? Is it too?
Don't do that, guys. Like, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
But
it's a good question.
it totally took. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like a person in heavy boots was walking
It's
up
true.
and down, and you would be looking up, and there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Nobody
there.
else is home,
Yeah.
and it's you know, it was
scary.
It was crazy.
So since moving to Charleston, I mean, are these things that you encounter more than you did living in other places in the country?
150%.
Yeah.
I have lived in a very old area in Maryland, in Northeast Maryland, where I was connected to Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, New Jersey. Within an hour, I could get to any place. I was like literally in this little pinnacle. And I did have, I think Delaware had some stuff, very, very, very old. But I was in a really, really, really old house that had a graveyard in their backyard. So, but here, that's normal. I'm from California. That is not normal. You don't do that. Everything is so old. So I have done more house clearings, more blessings, more mediumship than I've ever done in my entire 15 years. And people are scared to say that they're going through that. I don't want that to happen. We should be this should be a more open conversation. It's not what you think it is. I'm not coming in and doing a seance.
No, it wasn't at all like that. It was very friendly. She was very calming to me because I could see experiencing it was I didn't
in
believe
real time.
It was happening.
Who
But
wants to?
And she was very friendly in the correspondence with it all, and
matters.
But no, I think it's important to know, even if you're not feeling comfortable in your space, like the things that you can do within the home, because it might be something. It might be something that's attached to something. It might be the house.
Peace of mind is everything. I think we think
but it
that we're not
feels better, you know.
Okay, here's a good example. Have you ever wanted to go to a party and then the night before you have your outfit, you have your everything set out, you're so excited. The night before you're like, I don't know if I want to go.
Yeah, all the time.
That it feels kind of like that.
Right.
And then you go and you're like, and crazy things go down. You're like, man,
I
wish I would. Kind of, it's like that. When you're feeling that ominous feeling of some kind and you can't pin it. You don't know if it's good. You don't know if it's bad. Is it because you're scared? Is it because of this? That's kind of what it's like. And then you're living in that over and over and over and over again. That's not good for your...
Just like an unease. Yeah.
Okay. Can you imagine like that as an energy ball? Like what that could bring and how that can make your family feel and how you go out within your day and you're always worrying. Like that's what I think was going on.
Yeah.
And I think that happens more often than we realize. And it's still taboo. We still think like, oh, like I'm going to look mentally ill if I speak on this.
Right. They'll be like, oh, there she goes again.
But, yeah, exactly. But it's not like that. Most people are like, please keep this confidential, and like I'll pull my magnets off my car and make sure that when I'm pulling up they don't know that the psychic is here. And because I respect that, I understand there is still a stigma about it, but hopefully this will help kind of break the mold of that. You just have to remember you're in more control than you realize.
Well, again, I bring you here to bring awareness because it's something I experienced personally.
It helped.
And I did feel strange about putting the post out there first. And then I was amazed at the amount of my friends, my clients, my coworkers
I was surprised.
that had
it was a lot.
commented. And then I didn't even realize till she had advised, and she didn't share, who and everything, but she had a lot of people off of the post reach out to her directly, and met with her to
they were
handle
so glad.
situations, and everybody that was open and talking about it or reached out to me saying, hey, your post, and I reached out to her, and this indicated the same thing I did, that it was resolved,
so let's talk about if there's not necessarily a ghost or a haunting or an energy, but let's just say a family lived there that was not your family and they had completely different energy than you, and you move in and maybe the house just doesn't feel like your home. So I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual energy. It could also just be negative energy.
I think I've had that with some previous families that
I sure did
had maybe drug addictions or
Yeah.
arguments or
it's funny that you mentioned
bad divorces
that.
and arguing,
so like
beating, things like that.
It's bad energy.
That's a really, really, really good point. I know that I have had my own quarrels and qualms in homes of my own, lived there, and then not wanted to be there anymore. So you move because it has memories, persons, places, things. Maybe you lose a parent or something like that, and you no longer want to be there. It's too much.
Right.
But you don't appropriately cleanse and bless the home when you leave.
Yeah,
so
I
what
wouldn't
happens,
even think to do that, honestly.
Right? So what happens? You leave that residual energy there, and whoever moves in has to deal with it. And actually, off of your post, I went and cleared a house that had to do with, it wasn't a ghost, it was the family prior. There was so much turmoil that had lived in that house, and they had known a little bit about what was going on, and I literally walked this, and their dog and like the 6 of them, we walked through the entire house, and where I decided to sit is where they had actual confirmation of where one of the worst knockdown, drag out fights had happened with the prior family. And I just sat there, and you could see them. They were like, what is going on? How? And I was like, and the dog just like sat down with me, and then that was it. I was like, it's time to go. Take your space, salt your perimeters. Keep selenite's a really good crystal that brings a lot of light. Put them on your windowsills.
Yeah,
bad
one
divorce.
One thing I love about my job is I go in and it's sort of like solving the mystery.
Yes.
Like, why are they selling?
Right.
Is it a divorce? And normally
you open the closet. There's military gear there. Maybe they're getting relocated.
Right.
You put it together by things.
True.
Together. But there are times where you just walk in and the energy is just off.
It's like when you walk in a room and there's people there and they've been talking about you.
Right.
You just know they were talking about you, and you're like, listen, Becky, like, we don't do that today. Like, that's really how you should approach it. Like,
awesome.
listen, Becky, like, this is my house. This is my space. You are welcome to stay here, but you will not disrupt me. You will not disrupt my family, and you sure as heck are not going to give me problems.
So how would you explain how that happens? Like a negative family energy that, like the one that you went through, that cleared. Like, why does that stick with the house and now a new family's moved in?
Well, I mean, I would say that, don't quote me on this, I'm not a scientist, but like 90% of things are organic material of some kind. So it was once living of some kind. But then you have the earth, and the earth is a living thing, and you can call me a hippie, but that's just the reality of it. It's just the truth of it. And so when you where is it going to go? When you leave and that energy is starting to kind of create a magnet of some kind, and it's going on over and over and over again. It's creating an impression of some kind. None of this, I can't prove this. This is technically pseudoscience. I mean, truly. But it's there.
Right. And I mean, if you can go back, I've been reading Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, yeah.
For like ever. But you know, that's kind of the whole principle is when you attach your
mind
to positive things,
positive things will happen.
And I think it's
same
kind
thing
of
with
a
the
similar
opposite
thing. Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Emoto, he is a scientist who did research. He would literally talk negative to rice and talk positive to rice. And when he talked negative to the rice, it decayed faster.
Well, it's the same with plants. I think there's been a lot of studies.
Same
with plants.
thing. You're talking about an organic material. So I think that really, it's really energy science more than anything. Your thoughts are also energy. Your brain is creating, little electrical impulses. Those thoughts are coming in. Those are creating little energy balls.
Right.
And if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, even just 2 people, and they're exchanging that, and then you're speaking it. Sound is also vibration and energy. You're talking about 6 months. That's all it takes of just over and over and over negativity. What do you think where is it going to go?
Right.
Is it going to follow you? I don't know. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it'll attach to a thing, which you think happened in your home with a certain item. It's really more about like how do you fix that more than anything, because that's happening. The way you fix it is to mark your territory. This is my home. This is my
So
place.
do I pee on
And this
it?
is my space. I mean,
Okay.
were we dealing with jellyfish?
I was just acting like a dog.
Essentially, your words are that. I mean, really, it's true. The key is to just not be scared to acknowledge that it's possible. That's the first step. Just
Well, and I
acknowledge that
think,
it's possible.
Open your mind to it.
Yeah.
And we talk about, obviously, being in a big historical area, a lot of old houses.
Yes.
I mean, you know, we're based out of Somerville, but I do real estate and photography and travels to meet clients all over the Charleston area. So we're talking, you know, everything from downtown Charleston to the old houses on Main Street in Somerville to, you know,
Well, we
West
were even
Ashley,
talking
everywhere.
St. George,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Churchville, you know, all these little
Exactly.
communities
And there's
that
a
have
lot
been here
of-
For
there's a lot-
hundreds of
houses.
years.
and the,
I mean,
the 1900s houses and
Right.
if you go to any cemetery here, you're going to see sites that are as old as 1600s, okay?
Mhm.
So that is many, many, many years of people who have come and gone. Most of the time, not all of the time, things are to rest. Most of the time. What we're dealing with is unsolved things, unresolved things, and that includes things like divorces, arguments, the grief,
Right.
things like that. It's the fresh stuff. So when we're dealing with the fresh stuff, it's new energy that just has not settled yet. There has been no solution. You know, ideally, you know, we pass or we move on and then we're free, right? We're at peace in whatever capacity. That's the whole goal. But that's just not realistic. That's just not reality. A lot of people leave this plane unhappy, unrested, not at peace, not in acceptance of what has happened. Well, that can stop you from moving on. That's just a reality. So where do you go? To where you know. You go where you know. Every single time. It's my saying every single time. Where else? What can you do? You know, you don't want to go to the other place, wherever that is, and you don't want to get lost. And so whoever's there is going to be dealing
really
with it.
Interesting thought, yeah.
Yeah, and then like, what's the difference between a ghost and just energy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a ghost or spirit, it still has its consciousness. I think energy is residual. Like, you're a photographer, if you're taking a picture and you see the light trail from long exposure,
Right.
things like that. I mean, it's literally capturing
Orbs.
light in its state,
Sure.
orbs, capturing light in certain states. Essentially, that's what we are. We're all made of light. That's what it is. We're energy. So imagine.
Well, and I think a good point to bring to that is, you know, especially during, you know, like when I started real estate back in 06, 07, 08, 09, 10, you know, we had a lot of foreclosures
Yes.
and a lot of hard
So sad.
times
Right.
with
Yes,
families.
well said.
And you know, obviously the home is being taken because they couldn't pay the bills, and we know how hard of a toll that is
Sure.
on a family.
Yes.
And I'm sure arguing and all of that, and then having to, you know, figure out where you're going to go from there once you're kicked out and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that, you know, a lot of these newer homes, like, you know, people bought those homes at 100% financing and
Yes.
lost jobs, and then they're upside
Right.
down in those
Well said.
times, had no other choice, you know, but to hand the keys over to the bank.
How sad.
Things like that I would never even think of to be, like, even my house that was 20
Right.
years old that I had not had it. But
Right. It has
to me,
a
I'm
story,
thinking about
though.
energy and
Mhm.
how
Yes.
stressful and what a terrible situation that probably was for whomever lived there, whatever
Sure.
family.
Mhm.
And, you know,
It's PTSD. I mean, it's a real thing. You have trauma. It leaves. We store it in our bodies. You
Right.
can ask a chiropractor, a physical therapist, or a doctor. They'll tell you.
Massage therapist.
They'll tell
Yeah.
you. You
Mhm.
store that in your body. This is a real thing. And, you know, if you think about it, Suzy, grief isn't just for people who passed. We grieve a lot of things in our life. We have to let go of a lot of things. I just let go of a car, okay? And I was like so stubborn. And I swear it was like I was driving Christine, that like haunted car from that movie. Like, the thing just had character, and the car doesn't have character. I think that I had a lot of experiences in that vehicle, and I just did not want to let it go. And it's the moment that I needed to, things just started to happen, man. It was my pride. I did the thing that I tell people not to do, is I didn't listen to my gut. I kept pouring money into it. It's the same thing. When I pulled up to the the dealership, he was like, you know I can't sell this, right? It's like, I know. He was like, it's got bad juju. I'm like, I know. he was like, yeah, like it was a whole thing. So it's not just for houses. It can be persons, places, things, offices, neighborhoods, places where you have a lot of memories that you've had to let go. You know, who wants to go back to their childhood home where they've experienced a lot of, despair, right? And people are like, oh, well, that makes sense why that room we don't want to sit in that room. I mean, these conversations are happening. We're just not putting two and two together.
So your job is to go into the home and you help the homeowner clear out that energy so they can be their space.
In their space. Yeah,
we forget how much control we have. It's the number one reminder. Like, you are here. You get to live. You get to live. You get to experience life. This is your space. And sometimes spirit energy, it just needs permission to leave. It just needs to feel some sort of empathy. Mm-hmm. I do have a girlfriend who acquired a haunted doll. Listen, she's a trip. And so, like, there's people who like seek that out also, not understanding what they're bringing in. Now, she's experienced enough. I know that she can handle those kinds of things. She welcomes those experiences. But sometimes people will leave things in the attic, like they forget when they move. Yeah. And you've got a 100-year-old doll in the attic, and you're wondering why you've got something up there. And the new homeowners will not go up there. They refuse. They're like, we had the home inspection. I'm fine. I'm not going up there. Now I'm like, I'm not going up there. You're coming with me. I want to go up there. But it's my job to kind of break that seal. Don't think I don't get scared. Trust me.
How long do you have to spend in a home?
Depends on what's going on there and how bad it is. I mean, I'm also a talker, so I spend time.
Well, we talk about relationships.
Yeah, you have to make people feel comfortable. Depends on how open someone is.
And describe what you're doing and what's happening. I mean, I think that's a big thing that you're good at and important, because for someone that maybe doesn't even believe, like I was like, this isn't.
Do you like to go in kind of unaware?
Yes.
So you can get
Don't tell me anything.
Okay.
The most unbiased we can go, the better. But also, so let's say you're hiring me because you know there's some ghosty, okay, something spooky's going on. All right, you know for sure. And let's say that you do have the home's history, okay? Share that, because you definitely want to acknowledge the home's history.
Right.
Okay? Because that's something I could Google anyway.
Right.
Let me know what has happened here. Let's do that. And then I can, reach out to my resources within the historical archives and libraries and things like that.
So you don't want to go in blind, but you don't want to go in with their perception.
Correct.
You want to form your own perception.
Let me get it out. And then what'll happen is, ideally, which I would say happens so far every time, is I'm going to validate what you've experienced. So that gets confirmed. And then the dialogue happens. That's when I'm validating, I'm like, hey, are you having something happen here? What happened in this place? Is anybody having bad dreams? What happened with a wedding? And then they're like, well, it's funny, there was a wedding in the backyard like 6 months ago, and blah, blah, blah. Things like that will start to happen.
Right.
That's where my gifts come in. That's the dialogue that starts to happen. But be skeptical. Be skeptical. It is healthy to be cautious. It is healthy to let me come to you and hit and nail that. First of all, it gives me confidence that I'm doing the right thing, but the relationship gets built. Once that happens, I don't know, it took me like an hour to really clear the house. Maybe like actually spend the time, light the candles, do the things, give you instruction, maybe an hour. Yeah. But a full experience, about 4 hours with me, just about to. You never want someone who you're not comfortable with clearing your home. Like, I could not be the right fit.
Is it something you do every time you move into a space?
Yes.
So is that something that you think everyone should do?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's who I am. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily go in and wait.
Correct.
For something.
Well, great question again.
Yeah, just take care of it right off the rip. Go into a fresh space.
Better to be safe than sorry. It's not going to hurt you to bless the home. That's never going to hurt you. What's going to hurt you is being in denial of it once things start. Right. It's better to be safe than sorry, whether it's a new home, an old home, a new experience, an old experience. Right. The other thing is, it's like if you've inherited properties, never know why that's happening. Inherited items, sometimes there'll be nothing that happens in the home and you inherit, your great aunt Gertrude's, cross-stitch quilt from 1901. And all of a sudden, the rocking chair is moving, and that's where it's on.
Gertrude.
Yeah, and 90% of the time, they're just saying hello.
Yeah.
But our movies, our perception in the media, our Miss Cleo type of energy, we think it's something spookier than it actually is. Most of the time, it's about creating empathy, having an understanding. They just want to be acknowledged. I'm still here. I'm looking over you. I'm protecting you. I want you to know that there's more to life, that death is for the living. It is. It's for the living. It's for you to value what's going on here right now and to just do better, be better. Don't repeat. A lot of times, Spirit will come and they're like, I had A, B, and C experience. Make sure this doesn't happen to them. They've also inherited a home that had residual energy and maybe they didn't do anything about it. And they're there warning you. I don't want this to happen. Right. Be careful of upstairs. The only other crazy thing I've ever had.
Because that's all
that's what they remember.
This is a bad.
Well, they want to be of service.
They're trying to protect.
They're trying to protect. Well, think about it. Can you imagine you passed, okay? God forbid, right? And you never handled what went through it. So the next person, you never said anything. You didn't speak a word. And I mean, this is newly acceptable to even have this conversation. Seriously. I mean, even before COVID. This was still really taboo. You did not talk about this, okay? Imagine you never said anything. You pass. You're watching this new family, and you are like, no. You're like, no. Don't do it. You're gonna do everything you can to get the person's attention.
I see.
Everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's a good example, right? It's not. It's
or
about,
like you're a mom and there's a little girl and the little girl that had like
100%. You just want to be like, don't do it, don't touch the thing, like blah blah blah. Like I know that I'm an empathetic person. I'm sure I will have empathy when I pass. I'm gonna want to do everything I can to protect whoever I love or whatever I've seen. There's always unresolved things, and so we come back and we visit in order to solve those things because the goal is peace. That's the whole point, is peace.
Yeah.
If you are feeling like unrested, I'm here, like say something, reach out, do something. That would be the best advice I can give.
And it's not scary. It's not crazy. She makes you feel very comfortable. They're natural products that she brings into the house.
Oh, yeah. First of all, I've never touched a Ouija board in my entire life, and I never will. I don't condone that. No offense to anybody who does. I'm not a demonologist. I don't remove entities. I'm not like that. I am a peacemaker. I'm an empathy bonder. I'm a psychic empath. I'm here to create a conversation of some kind, not a get out of here, cast you out, demon. That's for a priest, and or a pastor. I also just want to say I do believe in God. Like I'm 100% working in tandem with something bigger than myself, and I think that's really important. These experiences make you more open. They make you realize how much bigger things actually are. They can actually be a blessing in your life and you don't even realize it. It's really your perception.
Right.
It's your perception. Yeah.
Have you experienced any? Do you have any photography?
I want to know.
I think I feel the energies. Yeah. Now, I haven't had anyone come and tap me on the shoulder, but there are a lot of times I'll go in home and the hairs will just go up on the back of my neck, or I just feel uneasy being in there. You just can feel it.
And then you open the closet and you're like, well, that makes sense. This is where the firearms were stored, or this is where, there's things that happen and you're like, oh, this makes sense. Everyone has intuition.
Well, this morning I actually shot a home that's an as-is situation. The realtor kind of warned me, and it was a divorce. And rolling up, you look at the house and you know, like, that there's not been good things going on there. But I would have known anyways, just walking in, that it wasn't on good terms.
Speaking of that, so obviously you get that feeling pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are more than likely going to get that feeling pulling up, right?
Do you say something? This is the question.
Well, I was going to say, if you cleanse this thing, would that make the feeling better?
Yes.
To sell the house?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think about buying the house, but until you said that, I didn't really think about doing it selling a house.
One of the coolest things I did was I actually blessed a new business. So they bought an old business that had been there for like almost 30 years, and this was this person's life's work. And it was a kitchen, and I mean, you were talking about grease just piled up, you know what I mean? And this person, never wanted to let it go. And then they passed, and the family sold the building, and I went in, and you could feel it. It's not that it was bad.
Right.
It was just so many people, so much love, so many conversations, so many arguments, so many up and downs, and then the pain of leaving. Go in, she was like, I just want to make sure we don't take on the business of what this was. Like, this is now my space. Can you come? And I did almost essentially what I did in your house. And they have done an amazing job. And I go in every year now and bless the business so that you can bring that prosperity and that goodness.
Your own...
It's a clean slate. You need a clean slate.
Right.
And the truth is like, who wants anybody to know your business anyway? Wouldn't you want that door to be closed? For as much as you're moving in, it's also good to cleanse the home moving out as well. It's a kindness.
It will sell fast.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, because there are legitimately,
where
like
you
said, you pull up
and it's just not
and you feel
right.
it.
Yeah.
And there might be justification, like you said, the backstory. Like, as an agent, I know more than you do as a photographer, obviously. But you feel a lot of things.
Well, you I don't know, like grief, for instance.
Yeah.
I can a lot of times tell. Yeah.
Sadness,
if someone has passed away or
something happened here. And, you do have to be somewhat open. It's my favorite when I see, like, husbands when they're not, and then all of a sudden they have a thing happen, and their eyes are, like, wide open, and they're like, what? Like, it's the skeptics that have that.
They're usually not as open.
Pay attention to those guys.
Right.
Those ones, the people who just do not believe, and they walk in, and they're like, it feels really weird in here. You probably have something going on, seriously. But, like, it's like this. I would love to get my hands on houses that have been on the market for a really long time.
Yeah. Like the whole burying St. Joseph, like, things like that that are, but
I would love that.
That is actually an
you
interesting.
have that house and it just makes no sense.
Why isn't it selling?
It's not
right.
selling.
It's priced
I
right.
would love to get my hands on that.
I'm like, what in the heck?
I will tra-la-la in that house and be like, we are love and we are light and you will sell and all these things.
We should do a little experiment. So if you are a local agent,
you want to do it on here? Let's do it.
And you just cannot figure out, then let's call Ellie and.
I would love that. I would love to do that.
That actually really is a great point I've never thought about. That because there are those houses. It's like I've staged it. It's in the
It smells good. The lawn is mowed. All the
why isn't it selling? And the neighbors are being nice and nobody's complaining in city council. Like there's no anything.
Yeah.
Like, the people were kind. Nothing bad happened here, and it's just not
now,
selling.
If you walked into a home and you didn't feel anything, would you just be like, "We're good"?
Here's your refund.
Here's your refund.
I've never had to do that.
Yeah.
By the time you get to me, you have crossed off all the boxes, all the other boxes.
Something's happened.
Something is going on. But or a lot of times, if I'm being honest, sometimes it's our own inability to deal with our own problems, and we'll project that out into outward into the house because we don't want to see ourselves. So sometimes it ends up just being me reading them and saying, what's really going on with you?
You need therapy.
You need help, and you can go the clinical route. I'm here for you, whatever you need. And then they just start bawling because finally someone sees them for who they are and what's going on, because most people who are going through that, you know, they're not showing that outwardly. They can't. They're in survival mode at that point, trying to keep up with the Joneses per se, and nobody is actually really acknowledging. And I'm an outsider. I'm unbiased and I have no skin in the game. Right. So I am picking up on something that nobody else around them is picking up on. That in itself can be worth it.
So
their whole life will change.
Do you have tips for people to do this on their own?
Yes.
Or do you just say no, leave it to the professionals?
Okay, if things are touching you, just call me. Okay? If you are smelling bad smells, sulfur, if you're having nightmares, call me. Okay? If you see a change in behavior in someone in the home that is normally kind, loving, and all of a sudden there is something wrong, call me. Okay? We'll figure it out. It's a person, place, thing, or entity, period. That's just the way it is. Okay? But it is healthy to literally salt your perimeter in Charleston. In this area,
so
and extend it.
What you mean
so
by
you're
that?
talking like table salt?
I mean, depends on how big your house is, right? So I recommend getting, you know, those 20-pound bags of salt. You poke a hole in it, like rock salt. Rock salt, like traditional rock salt. Now, I have Jewish roots, so kosher salt is my thing. That's just me, an homage to my family. And you literally poke a hole, you can put it on a wagon, and you drag your wagon around your perimeter of your house. It's also really good for keeping slugs away. So there's that as well. Lots of things. And
unwanted.
Listen, it'll rain, and that rain will go into the salt, and it'll go into the earth. Okay, this is
so is it like a barrier?
Salt is known for protection. Okay. The other thing is iron. So like when you go to a graveyard, you see the iron fences.
Yeah.
It is said that iron holds in energy and protects that space.
Really?
That's what that's for.
Interesting.
Yes. Iron. So copper is a conduit. That's how you bring in things. Okay. Iron will literally protect the ground. So you can put little pieces of iron, little iron rods. Okay. And you can also use Palo Santo. I really just recommend like the Lord's Prayer. On the website, there's a new blog post called Home Blessings and Protection. Okay, you can check that out. There's a whole list. I don't gatekeep information. But if you're just not comfortable, just call me. Like, we'll figure it out. It's worth it. 90% of the time, it's me educating you. But sometimes it's just weird. It's just weird, and people just can't. It's just weird. You don't necessarily want to be the one that's doing it. You want some, because then I'm in and I'm out, and then you're free. You don't have to do any of that. Now, if you're experiencing slamming doors, if you're hearing audio, if you're experiencing cupboards open, things like that, that's 100% a poltergeist, and me and my friend will come. And I don't necessarily want to, I can do it, but it's good to have more than one person come in. It's usually a historic home. There's usually something going on there where someone has passed and they are pissed. But you can bless your home. For me, I blow cinnamon in my doorway. Cinnamon's for sweet and blessings on the first of the month. And I say, bring me prosperity, love, and protection. And I blow it in my doorway from the outway in. And I salt the perimeter of my home. And I make sure that my plants are clean and safe, and tidier home, the better, right? I do not live by that. I just want to say that.
No, it's true though. I mean, the more organized and clean your home is, the more
and the better you feel. Honestly,
but
you don't feel so chaotic and like when my office gets stuff all over it. It's like I feel like I'm just all over the place. You know, when it's clean and put together.
Well, and you see that in a lot of places that do have a lot of activity. It's stuff that's been left for years, things that haven't been cleaned, things that haven't been taken care of. You know, and because the energy is so stagnant, you get sad.
And you had talked about her son's room being unorganized.
So real.
Is that a pattern that you see when you go into a home?
Yes.
Is you see a lot of chaos and unorganization?
Yeah, who wants to be in there? Who wants to
Right.
deal with it? You get overwhelmed, and that can, you know, and this is just a shot in the dark. I wonder if spirit wants it that way. Stay away from my things. The other thing that just dawned on me is renovations. You could be in your home 20 years.
Oh, and maybe.
And you start knocking down walls and bringing in additions, and they're like, you changed everything. This has been like this for so long. How dare you?
Oh, wow.
How dare you mess with my space? Then you'll get activity too. 100%.
Interesting.
100%.
Wow.
She's like, guess I'm not gonna knock down that wall today. I'm gonna,
Well, gosh, and right now Charleston's just under complete
I think that's why
renovation.
there's so much activity. I really, really do. I think that it's
because all of these
gentrification.
historic homes now are
getting redone.
revamped.
100%. It's there's an explosion. It's why I moved here. I came for a visit, and I was like, I called my mom. Okay, I'm almost 40 years old. Who calls their mom? Okay, I was like, Mom, it's happening again. I was like, don't tell me I have to move. She was like, I'm not in it. God has his plan. I'm not telling you what to do. If you feel like you need to move. And I just was like, I could not shake it. I felt it here. And I moved 6 months later. 6 months, that's it.
Wow.
Everything that I had, all the things of my thriving business in Maryland again, and moved on down.
And had you ever been here before?
No, I visited once. I didn't even know where South
And was
Carolina
it just vacation?
I came to visit some friends.
And that was it.
That
Wow.
was it. And it was after COVID, you know, it was like towards the end of COVID. So I had been dealing with a lot of people who, we didn't know if COVID was going to end. We didn't know if everyone was going to be okay. I also want to remind everyone that we experienced a lot of loss during COVID. And like you said, foreclosures and things back then. A lot of people gained and lost at that time as well. And we're only a couple of years out.
Right. Yes.
The truth is it's coming. This is coming. This is now it's going to register what you lost, what you've done, where you've been at, you know, who do you miss?
All the businesses.
That
have been lost.
We're in recovery mode. It would be good to bless anything that you're doing. Like, it's not going to hurt you. That's my point. And if you're going to knock down a wall and you have a historic home, just call me.
Well, you better bless this office before you leave.
I promise. I brought all the things. This is really lovely. Do you guys have any questions for me other than this?
No, I think I've learned so much.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, you know, everybody always likes to hear the crazy, funny, or wild story. Okay. So, do you have one in particular, without disclosing any personal information, that would be a good
you can
hear?
Divulge. No.
Sure. Because confidentiality. I was in a home, and I was actually just coming to read a lady's cards, and it was a beautiful home. Oh, it was so beautiful, and it wasn't old, but the prior owner brought plants and vegetation and stuff for the landscaping from an old plantation.
Oh.
And it's so interesting. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't the home. They brought all the palmettos, all the things, azalea, a magnolia tree, everything from an old plantation in the backyard.
Never.
I'm sitting outside, and we're just chatting, and I remember it was about to rain, so you could feel kind of like the moisture in the air.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's in your backyard? And she was like, what? Like, what is in your backyard? She's like, it's the palmettos. And so she tells me all of this, and we go inside, and the shower upstairs turns on.
Oh.
And I'm like, what just happened? She goes, that happens all the time. Like, it's normal. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm getting my sage. Give me 1 second. I run to my car. I'm like, no.
I like how she's telling you it's
I'm like,
normal.
what do you mean it's normal? I'm the psychic.
Did it bother her?
No, she was like living with ghosts. Like, it was nothing. Like, could describe them and everything. She goes, my kids would say that shower would go on all the time. We could hear footsteps up and down the hall and stuff. Yeah!
Clean ghosts.
I know. Yeah, like
Wow.
messing with water. And so I think this is in a neighborhood where there's an old Indian burial ground. And I think that natives, they love the water. That's like their water source. That's their life source. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's
a connection.
There's a connection there, along with the plantation vegetation being brought in. And she never had a problem after that. But That was wild. It was like when I was at your house and we felt the draft.
That's a good point to bring up with the vegetation, because right now the big thing is the old reclaimed barnwood and stuff.
Don't do it! Oh my God!
And I just recently sold a house. They had brought all this reclaimed wood in. I think it was from Orangeburg, from this thing, and beautiful floors, and they epoxied them, and on top of gorgeous. But
epoxy's not going to stop a spirit. You know what I'm saying?
Windows was a big thing too.
The old windows. Homes. Even just
so not only do you have to worry about lead, you have to worry
about
don't lick it.
Don't lick it, and make sure that you sage it.
Right.
I mean, really, think about it. They say, like, a house speaks. If these walls could speak, the house has character. That's coming from some sort of narrative of, like, the house also witnessing all the things inside. We're talking about organic material that's very, very old, that comes from something that was once living, from a time where there was a lot of history. I'm going to go ahead and err on the side of caution, and I'm going to bless my home. It's not going to hurt you to have someone like me come in, okay? It's going to cause you more harm if you wait. I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, and it's another thing for your toolbox, Suzy.
Houses that don't sell, right?
Meeting you really has opened up. I'm like, this is making sense that I met you more than anything else.
She's helped multiple families in their homes since we've met.
Because
of the connection.
I didn't know I was moving to Charleston. I just thought it was spooky, and I was a big fish in a small pond up north, and I was like, maybe this is a way for me to expand my business. And I was like, and it's, it's beautiful here. I love it here. This is so my vibe. I really am a Southern belle at heart, truly. And then I was like, oh, this is not why I moved here. I was like, it started to click. Like,
for people listening, how can they reach out to you?
You can go to my website. It's beguidedbythelight.com.
And we'll put that, I'm sure, in some notes or something somewhere.
Please,
we're going to edit that in the video.
You can reach out to Suzy, you can reach out to me, and you can just click. There's a ton of services. I offer spiritual guidance. I offer mediumship. I'm on tour for mediumship right now. I'll be in Chicago in June. And I'm really excited about that. Suzy came to my first event.
Yeah, she did one in Mount Pleasant.
It was a blast. It was crazy.
Mel Robbins had a medium on her podcast. Yes. And I think that, what you do is becoming more and more, I don't know if acceptable is the right word, or just...
It's well received, I think.
Received.
Well, when you lose, we have to remember COVID. We lost so many people at one time. People started to have things... The entire world was on the same playing ground. We could finally relate. It didn't matter if you were old or young.
Right.
You knew somebody who lost somebody. So it opened up the conversation. And then when you think you have everything together and that gets taken from you,
right?
It's the oldest story in the book.
Yeah.
That is when you find God. That is when you find something spiritual. That is when things become open. Because what happens is that ends up being a blessing. And no way in a million years would you have thought losing would be winning.
Right.
And that is also very deeply spiritual. It connects you to something bigger than you could ever imagine. That is an experience. You have to experience that. You can't teach that. You have to physically have something to relate to. So I think it connected everybody more than anything. So yes, it's more, I think if I would have moved here 10 years ago, I would have maybe failed and would have not worked out for me.
Right.
I think that I moved here at that time. I was called, and you're going to hear it. There are a lot of people that are very drawn to this place, that are very spiritual. This is happening. I don't know why. I have no idea what that means. Maybe it's time for Charleston to get their spooky together and take it more.
City.
The holy city needs to acknowledge how holy it actually is and how sacred this is, and that the history really needs to be respected and acknowledged, so that this can be an amazing place to live, and people aren't scared to buy homes, and they aren't scared to have these conversations. So
this was great.
I loved it. I would do it again.
So I'm so glad that she came into your life.
I know. Oh, me too. I'd still be having whoever walking around us.
Man, whoever he was, right? Yeah, it was great. Thank you for having me.
Well, props to you for,
you were brave.
To be brave and publicly kind of share
like
your
I said,
story.
it was the day of do I really put this out there? You know, because I watch everything. I'm careful about what I share. I run my own business. I've had my own business for over 17 years, and not everybody, like, I don't talk my politic opinions, things like that, because I don't ever want to offend anybody. Yes. I don't,
it's a touchy subject.
It is.
And so that was it, but it was one of those days where it was like, I am at a loss. Yeah. And somebody out here that I'm connected with somewhere will have something, an answer, or they'll be like,
your comments were full of mixed bag reviews. It was like, hey, you should go here. Oh, this is bad. Be careful. All these things. Right. You're full of, it was truly full of a wide range of responses.
Yes. People that had experiences, people that didn't, that just had thoughts, people that, just said, no, just go strictly
all
to
of
the
them,
church.
right? Yes. Lay off the sauce, Suzy. Okay. Yeah, but then
there she goes again.
But the majority, I was amazed, really acknowledged it. So this is a conversation that we're having behind closed doors, but not with each other. I want everyone to start talking about it, not because I want you to believe, I want you to make it safe, so that if you're actually having an experience, we can solve it. You should not be living in your home with unrest, feeling uncomfortable, and being scared.
And you don't have to put a big Facebook post out like
I
did.
She'll take
you can call her and it's discreet.
Yes, I'll take my magnets. Nobody will know.
I think just with anything else, especially now, is people need to have an open mind.
Yes.
And just don't be judgmental,
The law of attraction's real. Come on, we all are acknowledging energy, okay?
And honestly, what does it hurt to try? And if it feels better, you feel better, the house feels better.
Right.
What did that hurt?
It's not going to hurt you.
Placebo effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll leave you guys with this. I was on a plane to Los Angeles visiting my family. This was a couple weekends ago. And I was sitting next to a guy who's an electrical engineer for the government. He was a fascinating individual. And it was like, put me and him next to, I talked the whole time. We talked the whole time. It was so amazing. He was so open-minded. And he said, debunk yourself. And I said, oh, I've done that. I said, the only thing I can say is it's possible that I'm reading your memories. So when I'm channeling, I'm reading the memories, the old energy. Now, I don't know how I tell you that things are going to happen, and they do. I can't debunk that, but it's very possible that I'm reading memories, which would line up with history, would line up with the residual energy that is here. Right. And he was like, this is amazing. Can I get your card? Like, this is so cool. It was so cool. And that is the best way. I still spook myself out. I don't know how I call it sometimes. And I just leave that to something bigger than me. And I just sit in gratitude with that. And that's for me. And no one can take that from me. But until you have an experience, I'm not here to prove that to you. But know that if you are open to that, you will have one. And it's only fun until it's not.
Yeah. You said that a few times today.
Yeah, like,
and I think
don't
that's
be
true
pushing.
with everything.
Like, oh, this is so cool, and then some weird stuff happens to you, and you're like, no thanks. You don't want to push that
doll back on eBay.
Listen, I'll let you know. It's spooky. I'll make sure that you can post that too.
What is with that?
If you want a haunted doll, apparently you can get one on eBay.
And I started looking in the stories I was reading.
Suzy went down a rabbit hole.
Like, what? This is
I should have been like,
People
don't do
sell
it, Suzy. Yeah.
Oh my God, there was good ones, there's bad ones, there's dynamic ones, there's like, beware, beware, beware. I'm like, why does anybody, first of all, why do you have it?
Because
you're selling
they
it.
don't
Second of
know.
all, why are you buying it?
They think it's funny. They think it's something funny. And that's what I'm saying. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Anyway, so that's it.
This was great. Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks to everybody for listening.
Yes.
I think that we got an A+.
Yes, I loved it.
It was
Absolutely.
Great.
And so, any questions, anything like that, reach out to us. We're going to have all of our contact information, websites, things of that nature afterwards.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate everybody listening.
Yeah.
And I think we have enough time. We might actually go check out a old house around
Yes, it's like 1924 or something.
Yeah.
Let's go. I
So,
can't wait.
Yes. All right. Thank y'all.
See you later.